Hello there. I'm back. If your goal is to do this, then keep watching. Hey guys, my name is Zach Ferguson, and this channel is all about helping you guys reach your tricking goals. I may not be the best tricker, but hopefully my experience can help you guys become the best. This is a tutorial for a Webster, and it was requested by a whole bunch of people. If you're not a regular viewer and you don't understand that intro, I fried my computer and I had to take a month off of YouTube, so that's what that was about. But it feels really good to be back. You already saw the thumbnail, but before we get started, I wanted to make sure you understand that this is going to be for a running Webster, not an axe to Webster or a loser. We'll work on those on a different video. This is going to be like your base Webster, so you can learn it and then improve it and change it into one of those two things or a different variation if that's what you're looking for. Webster is an important beginner to intermediate level flipping trick that can be deceivingly hard to learn. It's really simple. It's just kicking over, doing a front flip off one leg, but there are a lot of different errors you can make when learning it, so I feel like it's kind of deceptively hard. And then once you learn it, it's arguably way harder to get it clean than it is to even learn it. There's a whole bunch of prerequisites that you could have for this move, but the only real ones that you might need are gonna be a front handspring or a front flip, but you can do it without either of those prerequisites if you don't have them. Just watch the video and you can see maybe a different type of method that might work for you. It'll also help you a ton if you have another move that kind of takes off like this, like maybe a forward aerial. But if you don't have that, it's not a big deal. So for this video, I'm gonna give you 5 different ways to possibly learn your Webster. So anyway, let's go ahead and get to the quick Bro, we talked about this. Okay, so what is a Webster? Well, a Webster is a front handspring without hands, or it's a front flip with a 1 foot takeoff, both landing either 2 feet or split footed like a front step out or something. That's all a Webster really is. For this one, you generally run into it, but you can also do like axe to Webster, and you can do like loser and a bunch of different variations like I talked about before. Let's go with the obvious first. So for method number 1, it's gonna be taking your front handspring and turning it into a Webster. Start by warming up your front handspring. Remember that you want to run into this. You want to do a little hurdle or a parkour step. We'll talk about that later. And then you're gonna split your feet into a lunge. You're gonna reach forward, place your hands on the ground, kick over, really focus on arching, and then push off by flicking your wrists and keeping your arms a little straight, landing on both legs or split-footed, and either run out of it or just land normal. I will definitely cover how to front handspring in the future. If you don't have it, it'll be right there. But right now I don't have a tutorial on it. Once you're really warmed up and you feel like your front handspring is easy peasy, then what you want to do is you want to start slowly taking the pressure off of your hands. So you want to kind of run into your front handspring, do your big lunge, look at the floor, make sure you know where you're going to place your hands, start to jump as hard as you can and kick as hard as you can and try to kind of float a little bit before you push off the ground. And then when you do push off the ground, still use a lot of power and push really fast and land on your feet as quick as possible. A lot of times when people are starting to do the like don't touch your hands or land light, they kind of don't push at all and then they just face plant or they just roll or something. So you do still want to push off really hard. You just want it to be like I'm floating for a second, I'm jumping, then I push hard. You essentially want to do it where you're like really jumping for distance and you're like trying to float in the air for a long time and then catch late, basically. If you have trouble with this, you need to focus on arching or keeping your back straight, because most of the time when people have trouble with this, it's either that they're not reaching their arms all the way out in front of them, they're kind of reaching it down like this, or you're curling your back, and so even if you're reaching, you can't like make the distance and your body is just in like a circular shape, and when the momentum kind of pulls you, you're just gonna roll, you're not gonna be able to resist and flip over. And then you're just gonna slowly take pressure off your hands over time. This could take, weeks or one session, just depends on you. Once you feel like you've got it and you're barely putting your hands down, you might want to get like a mat or go to a volleyball court or go to somewhere soft to make sure that you're safe. But I'm not your dad. It's completely up to you. But either way, what you're gonna do now is just go for the Webster. You're reaching out for that front handspring and then you're gonna pull your arms back behind you, kind of like a Russian front flip, and then kick as hard as you can and just don't stop kicking. Kick and keep pulling that leg over and keep pulling that leg over, and then either you're gonna pull both feet together to land on 2 feet, or you just keep kicking that leg until it lands, and then you pull your head up and you got yourself a Webster. For method number 2, we're gonna do a front flip and turn it into a Webster. So you probably want to have a really good front flip before you do this. If you have a front flip where you land like super low, then it may not actually help you with a Webster because you're just gonna crash really hard, and it really sucks doing a Webster and crashing, like I've said before in videos. I'll just drop immediately.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
But if you can land your front flip with relatively straight legs or run out of it or step out of it, then it can definitely be a very good tool or method for learning your Webster. So go ahead and warm up your front flip, make sure it's high and fast and you can step out of it or run out of it, and then we'll move on. Then what I'd recommend doing is running into your front flip, going for the punch that you would normally do, and then do it split step. But right now, all you need to do is just barely pull your legs apart. So take off just a little bit apart, but still think about doing a punch. This is gonna feel very awkward at first and you'll feel really slow even though you're barely changing anything. It's just important to think of it as the same move. Just do a front flip, but with your feet like slightly separated, just so your body gets used to, oh, I can go fast with my feet separated. Then you want to start making the kick your power rather than the actual punch or the jump. So what the difference is basically you're running, you're starting your punch, you're going for it, but then you want to lead with one leg like the whole way through. As soon as you leave the ground, try to kick, for me, it's my right leg, all the way backwards over my head and try to land on that leg, because that's what's actually going to power you through this movement. It's going to feel super awkward at first if you've never tried any kind of Websters, but this is an important progression. You want to make sure you're doing the running front flip, do a split step, and then as soon as you take off, split it and try to like step out at the end of your front flip. If you have a step out front flip, it's going to be a lot earlier than you would normally do your step out, just for reference. Then we're going to learn your takeoff methods. So there's 2 different ways you can enter into your Webster if you're doing it running. That's what I was talking about earlier with the stances. I go left, so I'm going to explain it on my left side. You can hurdle, where you run and then you go right jump off your right, land on your right, and then step forward on your left foot into a deep lunge, and then you go for that kick and the front flip motion. Or you can do like the parkour, Kong step, where it's more of a leap rather than a hurdle. So you're running and then you take a really big jump from your left to your right leg. You leap really far, and then as soon as you land, you just take a step and go for the Webster. Either way, the whole goal is to get as much forward momentum as you can going forward, and then lunge into a big open stance to where like your legs are super far apart already. That way it's gonna be really, really easy to kick. And then as soon as you get into that position, you wanna jump straight up. You wanna focus on pushing only up with your leg. Do not try to jump forward, or else it's gonna be really hard for you to actually get any height. You already have a ton of forward momentum if you're actually like running into this, so you need to block only up and then kick over. From here, there are two different types of Websters, or two different types of ways you can, make your Webster look. There's the more of a front flip way, and there's true Webster way, in my opinion. So some people will do a Webster and they will split their legs and they'll kick really hard, but then they'll keep their arms up and then use that to make like a U position, so they're pretty high up, and then they just do a front flip and then they either step out or land two-footed. That's a completely valid way to do it, but not the way that I prefer. I feel like it has a lot more impact and I don't like it. It doesn't feel good for me. So the way I like to do it is kind of dropping my chest to the floor, stretching my left hamstring and kicking back as hard as I can, letting my leg pull me upwards, and then I just kind of arch down. This is the way Adam Davenport does it, and a lot of other people who have like really pro looking Websters. So either way you want to do it, it's just time to make sure that you're like focusing on that technique now to really clean it up. If you're doing it the more front flip way, all you're doing is, like I said, kicking as hard and aggressive as you can, making a U shape, almost like you're doing a butterfly kick but going forward, and then you just get in a tight ball using your arms really aggressively. If you're dropping your chest, then you're gonna do that deep, deep lunge. Try to almost put your chest on your left quad, and then you're going to not necessarily look backwards. I kind of look at the ground for a little while as I start to kick. I lift, and then as soon as I know I've gotten my leg up, I jump as hard as I can off of that with my head down, and then I arch my back. It basically feels like doing the end of a kip up, if you know how to do a kip up. So it's kind of like drop my chest, kick as hard as I can, and then do a kip up, and then I've got a Webster. With all the rest of the methods, I'm gonna teach you the chest down method. Pretty much the only method where I'm gonna teach you to keep your chest up is with that last front flip method. So I just wanted to mention that as we move on. So the third way you might want to learn your Webster is elevated. This one, in my opinion, is extremely obvious, and this is the way that Kojo said that he learned a lot of his tricks. It's a completely valid method, as you can see by how clean his tricks are. Don't judge yourself. However you need to learn a trick, learn it and then clean it up. People only ever see the end result of most things anyway. Even if you learn it, at a trampoline park or something like that, or on your trampoline, like you were saying, bro, and then transfer it to the ground, then that's totally fine. But yeah, like I was saying, this one's pretty obvious. What I did was I took a stack of mats at my gym, and I, have like different levels on them. This is like a triangular block, so I know I can take pieces away, and then you just stand on top of it, get in your big lunge, and then you just kind of kick over and flip over and either land on your back or try to land your feet first or something like that as you drop down. The reason this one is super helpful, especially if you have mats, is because it's very passive. You're just flopping over and getting used to stretching that hamstring and kicking that leg up, and then just vibing on the way down and just chilling as you fall down and whatever. What you want to focus on doing is looking at the mat, keeping your eyes on where you want to go, because remember, your feet are going to follow your eyes. So you want to look at the place where you want to land and just flip over. Focus on clearing the ledge as you look at that point. So on this one, you can jump forward a little bit if you need to. It's just when you're doing it on elevated things, that's the most dangerous part, is whatever you're taking off of, especially if it's something hard. That if you flip over and you don't actually stretch, you can just yeet your back on the edge of it, and it sucks. Do not do that. Make sure you clear the ledge at all costs and then land on whatever soft you're landing on. If you're not landing on something soft, I'd recommend landing on something soft, please. For example, you can do it like at the beach if you have a dune that is legal to go on, and you just find like a ledge and you just go over, there's a sandy bottom, and that's a safe way to learn it. You could also find something like elevated or tiered so that it like has different, you know, stages where you can drop down lower and lower and lower. Just find somewhere that's safe, but don't do something like this where it's just concrete underneath. That's just the only place that I could find that illustrated this example. Try kicking harder and harder and getting more aggressive with it until you can land on your feet. Then you just yeet that mat out of there and then go to the next level. Kick over, try to land it there, focus on arching a little bit more, focus on kicking more aggressive, and if you can do it running, but in my situation, I was only able to do it from a standing position because of just the elevation and I'm on mats and stuff. Then yeet that other mat out of there, but actually, if you're at a gym, like make sure you're respectful and you know the owners or the people running the gym, and make sure that like you're not just throwing mats around and being disrespectful. I can do this because it's like the gym that I work at, but if I saw someone doing this at open gym, I'd be like, bro, what are you doing? But it is really fun to do. So like, get permission and then yeet those mats. And then if you're doing it on a mat stack like me, you should be somewhere near the end now, and now you can run into it. So no matter what, when you get close to the end, I would recommend definitely running into it. This is where you want to figure out what your stance is going to be, whether you're going to hurdle or do the parkour lunge step into it or the leap or whatever, but run into it, hit that position, and then kick over and see if you can land it. Drill, 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 drill until it's clean. Don't take it all the way to the floor until you really feel like you're landing standing up. You might also want to take away your landing mat at this point if you're at a gym or somewhere else that's like relatively safe. And then you just take away the other last mat and try it on the floor, and hopefully that got you your Webster. For method number 4, this is another elevated version, but it's more of a step up rather than a drop off. So what you want to do is set up a mat, or if you are somewhere where you have like maybe a log that you can put in your yard or something hard that is a little elevated in front of like a sand pit or something, no higher than knee height. If it's knee height or higher, then it's probably just gonna be detrimental and it's gonna be hard to step up. So you want it about mid shin height, maybe a little higher than that for optimal like height. The reason this helps so much is because if you hit it and you have a lot of momentum and you actually push upwards, it's gonna give you disgusting amounts of power. It's gonna feel like you're on a trampoline or something if you do this correctly. It's kind of strange, but it's just physics. Basically, you place your foot on top and then your momentum goes at this 45-degree angle, so it allows you to flip and also go high at the same time, so it makes it really efficient. Just make sure that whatever you use, it's not gonna slide or move out from under you, because that's gonna suck. On this one, you are going to need either your front flip or front handspring, and essentially all you want to do is think of it like a step up to front handspring or a step up to front flip. Remember, whichever one you choose, it's going to change the look of your Webster. This one is almost a little supplementary, like you might want to learn it one of the other ways and then do this to really clean it up and improve it, but really you're just going for it with speed, figuring out whether you're doing that hurdle or that parkour step into it, kicking as hard as you can, driving the leg all the way to the ground, pulling your chest up at the end, and just trying your Webster over and over again. This is really a just like try and fail and try and fail until you get it. This one is very efficient in terms of height and power, like I was saying, and it also kind of forces you into the form because one leg is up like this and one leg is back, which is kind of how you take off anyway. So it can help you really like drill down the form for your Webster. Your power on this is going to come almost exclusively from your kick in terms of rotation and your jump in terms of height. Once you actually get in the air, you can either tuck like a front flip and pull in, or you can just keep kicking and arch all the way down to the ground. But either way, there's not much to this method. It's just drill it with a step up and then hopefully you'll get yourself a Webster. I personally used to do this on rocks and on the septic tank in my mom's backyard because it had like a 45-degree slant, and I would just Webster up that thing and try to go for something actually like elevated. So I'd be going up onto it. I'd be Webstering this way, kicking up and over and landing up onto a higher elevated surface. So once I could do that, then I would just put something else down on flat that was like that, and then I would move that out of the way and kick over, and it would be super easy to Webster because I've been training it like up. But again, remember that slant, if you're using it efficiently, will give you mad power. So it might be deceptive when you actually take it to ground. And the last method is gonna be doing it over something that's exclusively found in gyms, unless like you got yourself like a hay bale and you live out in the country and it's like a small hay bale because you don't want one that's like really big. But essentially it's gonna be taking a roller mat that you normally use for back handspring and that I taught you guys how to use to train your rise, and you're gonna use that to get your Webster. So I saved this one for last because I feel like this is one of the most easy ways to get it. It teaches you the form, it makes you arch your back. There's almost no margin of error. Like even if you just smash into it, you just kind of stop and you're like, man. Or like if you do get over it, then it kind of just feels like you're doing nothing. So you're like just chilling on the way down while you're still doing good form. So I think it's just very efficient to use this mat for it. So what you're gonna do is start by doing a front handspring over it. Like I was saying, it's really efficient because even if you don't know how to do a front handspring right now, all you gotta do is walk up to it, put your hands down, and do a handstand. Once you hit your back on it, you just roll over. So you do want to use a little momentum, otherwise you'll get stuck, but you just do a handstand fastly on the mat and it'll roll over and you'll land your feet and you got yourself a front handspring over the block, right? Then you start adding speed, you do your lunges, you make sure you do it really hard. Then you want to get a little farther away from it so you really feel like you're reaching out. It's very important to put your hands for the front handspring directly underneath it. Like put it as close as you can to it because it's rounded, and if you put it farther away, you're actually doing it like a lot farther away than you think. So put your hands really close to it and it's gonna force you to arch, which is what you want. Then you're just gonna slowly start taking your hands away like we did in the first method. This is kind of terrifying for most people when I teach them, but as long as you are looking at the base where you're going to put your hands, and then you can like either do one hand or you just, you know, barely flick or something, as long as you're kicking and your head is down for that front handspring, you're gonna hit the mat and you're gonna go over and you're going to land like a front handspring. It's not gonna be as catastrophic as you probably think when you're actually going for it. Focus on jumping and then eventually take your hands away and just throw them back like a Russian front flip, like I was saying before, and drive over with that leg and you'll start doing a Webster on that mat. Then all you gotta do is really focus on jumping, really focus on kicking, run really fast, make sure you hit that lunge, get your form right over time. You could take weeks to do this, like I was saying. I know a lot of times in tutorials it seems like, do it now, 5 minutes, let's go, do it as quick as possible. But like this could take time, and I feel like the roller method is one of the easiest ways to, you know, do it chill over time, passively getting your Webster. But once it is time to go for it, you want to focus on doing it as hard as possible. So launch yourself, and then you want to basically feel like you're doing a Webster without the mat. Do it over and over again until you just barely like tap the mat barely, and then you walk out of it or you run out of it or something. At that point, yeet that mat out of there and then do your Webster on the floor. Let's go ahead and move on to common mistakes. So the first most common mistake I see all the time, especially when people learn it like on trampoline or from front flip method, is not arching at all. So the reason this is so important is because if you don't arch, then basically what's happening is your arch normally goes like this and your head is down here and your feet are here. So if you kick and then you start arching, and then you squeeze your core, and the more you arch, the quicker your feet will hit the ground. So you hit, and then you can just pull your head up, just like landing a kip up, like I was saying before. But if you are not doing it, say you're doing it this way and you tuck, so your head is up here, and then you go, and then your feet are here, and then you tuck for your Webster, you actually have to go a lot farther around before your feet come down. But you go like this, and then you start to untuck, and then you could land farther back and still fall down. So arching is way more efficient than tucking, in my opinion, for a Webster. The next common mistake I see is not kicking. This is a Webster. Focus on kicking backwards as hard as you can. Like the kick is like everything in this move. You basically want to make your leg just like a stilt and then just launch yourself over using that kick. When I do it, I just kick as aggressive as possible, and even on mine you can see how the kick isn't even leading me as much, but I promise you I am kicking as hard as possible. So if you want your Webster to be really good, focus on the kick. You want to use your glutes and your hamstrings. You want to use your booty and this part right here, along with your calves obviously, but really these two muscles groups are the ones doing it, and then your back. You want this to be like really flexed and not turning sideways. A lot of times what'll happen is people will kick but their natural tendency is to kick like this. And if you kick like this, then you're gonna start like turning sideways like a side flip. You wanna focus on not kicking here, but kicking like this, making sure that you're kicking straight backwards as much as you can and then flipping over. We're all humans, so we're gonna have these little inefficiencies, but the more you can kick like straight over your head, the more power you're gonna get. The next common mistake I see is bending your front knee too much. So you do really wanna bend it, but if you bend it too much, or you never get straight, if you just keep in that lunge that whole time, then you're not gonna get much height and you're just gonna stay level and like fall over and probably just slam on your back because you never got any height. You wanna get into that deep lunge. If you keep it too straight, then it's just gonna either hyperextend and hurt you like crazy, or you're just gonna like flop over with no power. There's a middle ground where you wanna hit that lunge, and then once you kick, straighten it as much as possible, and again, push only upwards. Do not try to like jump forward off of that bottom leg. It's really important that you just go straight up and let the kick and your core and your back, which your back is part of your core, rotate you over to the floor. Make sure your leg starts bent and gets straight, and then you kick over. The next common mistake I see is not knowing what to do with your arms and chest. If you're doing the front flip method, make sure that your chest is high, you throw your arms up and you curl over as you're kicking backwards so that you can get in a tight ball. If you're doing the drop your chest method, then make sure you drop it down to the floor and you're as low as you can get. And like I said, your chest is basically on your quad while you're kicking, and then you wanna just arch as much as possible and hold the arch all the way down, and then right yourself and walk out of it like you didn't even do anything because you're casual, you know what I'm saying? So if you're using the front flip method, arms up and forward and really high up, or if you're using the arch method, then you wanna drop them behind you and really pull them like a Russian front flip. Sometimes you'll see people bring one forward, bring one back. You could also do that, but it can tend to twist you. So if you feel like you're twisting, try to drop both arms backwards, or here if you're doing the other one, rather than 1, 2. It just depends on you. Study your footage, analyze it, and then correct it. This common mistake I see mainly with flexible people. So if you're super flexible and you're learning this, there can be the tendency to arch too much. I hesitate to say that because for me, I'm like a powerful, stiff person. So for me, like you can't arch too much, boy. But for flexible people, you definitely can arch too much. What happens if you arch too much is you're going to arch all the way over, and then especially if you bend your knees, you're gonna land on the top of your feet and then hit your knees and arch your back really aggressively, kind of like people like landing on the trampoline aggressively. I was gonna put a clip in there, but then I thought about it while I was actually talking right now in real time. I thought, you know, you can look that up if you want to. It's kind of like traumatizing, so I'm not gonna put that in right now. But anyway, you're gonna hurt your back if you land like this. Both feet land like this, and then you either slam the ground or you bend in half like that. So if you're arching, just make sure that you're not bending your knees that much. So if you are arching really hard, which you should, just make sure that your knees are like only slightly bent. You want it like this much. If you bend it all the way, then you run the risk of arching too much and going like really quickly and landing on your stomach or landing on like the front of your top of your foot and then hurting your back. So make sure you're careful of that. And then the last, almost most important common mistake I see is not understanding your landing tech. So no matter which method you're using, even if you're coming out of a front flip, you have a moment where you want to start to get straight, and the way you go from a tuck to straight is by flexing your back muscles and arching a little bit. So basically what you're doing is you are pulling your head up and away from the ground using your back muscles. So you're kind of arching your back and your back, and then you are flexing your glutes and pushing your pelvis forward, landing with your toes kind of pointed, but really you're aiming for the ball of your foot. Make sure you land on the ball of your foot so you have the safest landing. If you land on your heels, you can hyperextend. So make sure you do not land on your heels. You wanna land on the ball of your foot with that arch, and then you want to use your core to pull yourself forward, and then you'll be able to land safely and easy no matter what method you're using. If you're doing a front flip motion, that's the way I recommend landing almost exclusively. You can definitely overdo it. So if you arch too early, then you can land really far back and you run the risk of like sliding across the floor. So be careful of that. As long as you hit the timing right, then it'll feel perfect, especially if you split foot, because you can land split footed. And then even if your head is like way down here, you can kind of pull with that other leg and stay stiff with your core, and then just stand up and you'll just walk right out of it casually. So I hope that helped you get or improve your Webster. I know that this took a while. Sorry guys. If you want to support this video and support me, please like the video. If you want to support me further, please check out my Patreon. I have a Patreon down below. I have a bunch of different tiers, from supporter all the way to apprentice. But like I said, either way, a like goes a long way. Until next time, please stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys later.